Hey there, John Gums at Dakota Grappler here. Just making a quick video as I'm driving to the state wrestling tournament in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Making my way down the interstate and, doing a little bit of thinking about wrestling in general and all the things with Dakota Grappler that have come and gone and you name it. So just making a quick post myself more than anybody else. But just want to go through kind of this year's accomplishments, this year's goals, how things kind of turned out. I was a little ambitious, start putting things together. Now, here's kind of how it works for the Dakota Grappler. I put together a book every year, if you guys don't know that, for Dakota Grappler. It's a preseason book. And I usually say the Dakota Grappler season for the next year starts as soon as I start selling ads for that. So it's kind of like it's weird how it goes from year to year, but so this year's book coming up for the next year will be the 2020-2021 book. And the 2021 book, its sales season usually starts the first week in July. So it's kind of the beginning of my year is July. So there's about 6 months of the year left of the year when I start. But so let's take you back to July of 2019, just this last year. So it was about the first week of July. We have the 4th of July, so it's right after that. I get out and start doing my sales. Now, in a matter of about 4 weeks to 5 weeks, I have to cover both North and South Dakota. Now, the book does generate a little bit of money, revenue there, but basically it's paying for itself is what it does. The time that I put in, maybe I haven't done this right, and I got to think business sense after 20 years of doing this, and really just having pride more than anything, to save for it. But money-wise, well, get out and start doing my sales, and had a lofty goal of start doing videos more often this next year. But I've never really journaled my whole trip. I should probably do every day video blogs. I'm not sure if anybody ever followed, but maybe if I ever stop doing this, somebody can follow my footprints and basically get this done, unless I can figure it out. But I'll just go back. About last June and July, I was meeting with a person by the name of Travis Lang. He was a 4-time state champion wrestler in Bismarck who has passion for the sport, has a new family now and all that other things. But we'd get together just to kind of hash things out business-wise, talk to each other about what our goals were a little bit, and almost like our own semi-little mastermind group that we've kind of put together over the years. But we've done it for the last couple of years, just kind of get together when we want to bounce something off of one another. But he had a couple business ideas for himself and kind of shot it my way. And, I had lofty goals. I'd like to help him more, but man, he wants to do kind of a funnel, a sales funnel for his business. And you can probably see him online. Look up Travis. He does a lot of things. He is a mortgage loan person, and I could get more into that, but so basically he was starting to get my head in the place of changing what I do kind of as Dakota Grappler as a hobby more into a business. And I've always had goals. I've got what I call side hustles. I'm a teacher during 9 months of the year and 3 months of the year. Like teachers, when I first got done teaching it after the year, they would teach summer school, or they'd go out and paint houses, or they'd go out and set up manufactured housing, or they'd have some side job on the side. Some guys would teach driver's ed. Well, before I started teaching summer school, which I do now, which is just crazy, but I kind of decided that I would like to try to do a wrestling book, highlight wrestlers, and so was a Dakota Grappler came in, and I'd like to kind of turn it into a little business. But that business took me away from my family, and does take me away from my family quite a bit. Those 4 or 5 weeks in the summer, and my boys, I got one that's graduated high school and one that's a freshman, and he plays baseball, so my summer is going to be very limited for the next few years. But let's go back to the Dakota Grappler stuff. So we were discussing how could we turn Dakota Grappler into, where it actually sells more stuff, makes more money, can I show other people to do this? Should I get other people involved? And I've always kind of thought of it as it being my passion. But with passion, if you do things right, you can turn your passion into a business in which you wouldn't have to do other work. But of course, wrestling's such a small piece of that, and it's such a niche that I'll have to teach, I got a feeling. But so I really thought about this a lot last July, and really as I was going down the road, I probably should have journaled many things. But I put down, in fact, I've got 2 notebooks full of written information of different things I'd like to do. But of course, when I start teaching, I don't have the time to do a lot of that stuff. So July and August comes by, and next thing you know, school starts again, middle of August. So I thought of a few things, and I started making a few more videos. Now, Dakota Grappler is up to a little over 100 videos in the time that we've had Dakota Grappler. Now, I'm talking now, I've had Dakota Grappler for 20 years, but the YouTube part is still pretty new. But I put a few up the last few years, maybe get to a duel or do a couple different things because I do some broadcasting, also another little side hustle. But I never took it seriously on how much I should probably videoing teams and videoing highlights and get more wrestlers, more publicity. And so I had this lofty goal of getting 1,000 subscribers. Quite a bit short. Started off by having about, I don't know what I have. I've got probably about 170 subscribers now, and it's not so bad, but the lofty goal of 1,000 was not met, and I'm hoping some people can help me do that in the journey, of making at least North and South Dakota wrestling people who really like following the sport, that they would start following Dakota Grappler, get more and more videos, and maybe some people can help me with some content that they would like to see out there, because the more that I bring to the wrestling fans, the more people that will subscribe, of course. Well, a couple things else. I started to put, when I did this, I bought a system that I could put on, and it's a subscription thing where it's called StreamYard, and I could basically start doing live. You have people come in, kind of like go-to-meeting type things, but then could do it live on YouTube. But it also had the ability to go live on both Periscope, Facebook, Twitter, those different things go live. And so I can pick 2 different places for it to go on. So I decided, guess what? I have a big following of Dakota Grappler on YouTube. So I'd put it on YouTube and on Facebook. Those 2 I'd pick out of my 2 choices. And I found that our Facebook following was much bigger than our YouTube following. And I would get anywhere in a week, and it doesn't seem like much, but anywhere from 500 for the slow videos to several thousand views for the ones on Facebook. And of course, there's no ad revenue, there's nothing you get out of it from Facebook. And in fact, on YouTube, until you get 1,000 subscribers, there's no revenue there either. You don't gain any revenue. YouTube gains all and everything there. So the goal was actually to probably build a little bit of revenue so that I could hire somebody to do some stuff like this too. Well, if it doesn't generate any revenue, even though you can get thousands of views and everything else, unless you have 1,000 subscribers, maybe I'm wasting my time. But I don't know. They don't say it's a waste of time, because it's always been a passion to get wrestlers the publicity they deserve, and I've done that many years without thinking of a major profit. Maybe that's my fault. It's not and people say, a business. In fact, I've been criticized by people saying that it's really not a business unless you're out to try to make some money, or at least pay yourself something. Well, I pay myself an enjoyment, I guess, of the sport. Oh man, it's kind of funny, but as I start pondering things a little bit, I'm now above 50, so just not over the hill, but I'm getting closer and closer to that top of that hill where people decide to retire. When you get to that retirement, I've always invested some money, and you name it, and teachers retire, I'm going to be fine. But could I do something like this in 10 years from now, or is the technology totally going to change? Is the world going to change enough? Is it worth my time to keep doing this and make a few people happy, or anything that way? I don't know. I have made great friends, and relationships doing this. In fact, I had 2 people come on quite often this year, and hopefully in the near future I can consider them really good friends. I consider them friends right now. But Tom Schoenhardt out of Rapid City, still getting to know him. He's been on half a dozen plus times this year on the web show, and he does a phenomenal job down in Rapid City. And then I got Bill Holton, who's from Carrington area, Kensel, Carrington area. We're in North Dakota here. A lot of people know where that's at. But he's becoming a really super good friend. He loves the sport a lot like I do. He's very knowledgeable at all levels. He's, been a good little, addition to bringing content, because I can't bring it all myself. So it's kind of the idea, and the best thing about this is these guys do it for the love of the sport also. Because I really couldn't pay him anything, because it's not generating any money really. It's kind of funny how that works. And so you really have to think about this. If my wife, would have stopped me a long time ago because of money reasons or anything like that, I don't know where I'd be, because it's not because I'm bringing home the bacon from Dakota Grappler by any means. It's crazy. So if there are people out there that watch this and have some ideas, I'd like to get more people together. And I look back at those notebooks I just did the other night after state wrestling, because North Dakota State Wrestling just ended last weekend and had a blast. When I got home on Sunday, I was just wore out, and I called it a state wrestling hangover. Now, it wasn't because of any adult beverages, there was anything like that, but it was almost like a depression when you think about it. It's like, you get so high and so happy and enjoy the season so much that you're almost kind of let down on that Sunday after it's over. Like, I'd like to celebrate with somebody the success of what's going on, and really there's nobody but yourself. So it's kind of a defeating feeling that you have, even though you won and you did such great things for the sport, at least inside, or I wouldn't have been doing this for so many years. And maybe it's doubt, maybe it's things that goes through other people's mind when they do something like this, or it's such an individual battle. I remember going back into high school, and I had a teacher. In fact, this might be a surprise, but I love to sing. and had a teacher, Mrs. Moeller was her name, and she was a choir teacher of mine, swing choir. And so she was always prim and proper and always dressed, and her hair was always done to the tilt, and she always took passion in what she did. You just knew it, that guess what, she got to do what she loved. It was always in music. And so she said a few different things, and I don't know if I want to get them, it's a little personal and stuff, but she told me one time to follow my passions, and kind of in that sense, and said it doesn't matter what other people think. It's what you work hard at and believe in, and and when the picture's all said and done, it's the people around you that really matters to, and so I've kind of tried to make my community, the people around me, the wrestling people. And it's kind of funny because it's a small world. It's a tight-knit group of people. But once you break that barrier of getting in, it's the best group of people ever too. It's funny. But like I said, a lot of that stuff is a little deep. But let's go back to July. I started writing these tablets, notebooks. That's how old I am. I call them tablets. But into those notebooks, and like I said, I started to read them. I read a lot of what I wrote down from last summer, and little goals, little things I wanted to accomplish. And really, God, they have to be goals again, because I didn't accomplish a lot of the things that, were they just dreams? Were they just, things to shoot for? I know that if you don't have things to shoot for, you kind of get stagnated. Just stay still. It's kind of like, I've got a freshman in high school, and he's got goals to get on varsity and goals to place in state. He wants to be a state champion. But what is he doing along the way to get that? how much can I help them? I do what I can. I get them. Yesterday we lifted weights. I would do anything for that sense. But I look at that ladder of success of things. If I had to judge myself on let's say, I don't know, I might have written down 20 things I wanted to accomplish. I don't know if I reached maybe 2 of them. And is that right? Is that wrong? I really don't know. That's where I struggle. I want to be successful. It's funny. Most people do, if you really think about it. I've found that as you get older, you definitely have a clearer train of thought of where you want to go, what you want to do, who you want to be, who you want to be around. But then again, if you've made your focus so narrow, are you finding the right people? I don't know. My focus has never been narrow. That's maybe the problem why I can't get more than 1 or 2 goals. I got 50 goals, and I should be trying to accomplish one at a time. And sometimes you get satisfied. I know this last week, we were done with the state wrestling, and then we have stuff to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. My boy doesn't drive yet, so let's just think about it. After school, I pick him up, we go lift weights. Next thing you know, it's supper. Next thing you know, Monday night, I did a broadcast to go through the Class B wrestling. Tuesday, got to remember I've got a couple side hustles you don't even know about, I guess. I've got other side hustles I do because I like to try to make a little bit of money on the side besides teaching, but I can get into that in other videos. But so Tuesday zipped by, nothing really happened, and then Wednesday, all of a sudden, people are starting to head to the state wrestling tournament in South Dakota, and I'm reading stuff on the Grappler and the message board and so forth, and again, I think it's South Dakota's turns to be, that accumulation of a great season. People get the highs and lows, and people are getting excited and nervous, and you name it. That was North Dakota last week. Now it's South Dakota this week. And so I see all the good posts. I'm so glad how positive, 90+% on the board have been. South Dakota, you guys have been awesome. I don't know any better way to say it, that at least some people are putting stuff out there. North Dakota, disappointed in you, but what can I say? It's my state where I live, so people are just, it's kind of funny. They don't put enough out there, and so I wish they'd help promote the sport some more. And I know a lot of people do it in their own way. Mitch Greenwood, great job. How you do in North Dakota? Anybody else that posts, I wish more people would be less, how can you say, selfish in some ways. South Dakota is not quite as bad, especially on the best board. When I'm talking selfish, maybe I'm a little overboard with that term. Maybe there's a better term for it. But reserved and selfish, if it doesn't benefit themselves, a lot of people don't do it. If it does, how is it going to help me? And that's, I don't think that's quite right. Especially in the sport of wrestling. Know a lot of people who have their own tournaments, and coaches are probably one of the least selfish people. They're trying to help other people. Teachers, you think of a lot of professions that way. But law enforcement, you get into the blue collar people, they're trying to help other people out. It's, deliver a service to others instead of themselves, which, there's a factor of pride and all of that, which is beyond, some people understanding. But what I find a lot in some of the wrestling community themselves, they don't like helping other people. And that's, I don't mean everybody. I'm talking, maybe I don't see this always the right way either, so don't take this with a grain of salt. But I see this picture of too many people who, if it doesn't help just themselves, what's the bigger picture for themselves, they don't do it, and they don't see the big picture. I don't know, and I don't know how I can help anymore and see the big picture. I think of lots of things that way. I think of the state of North Dakota and wrestling and the High School Activities Association. They've been selfish in their own ways. They always want to be part of the National Association, Federation of High Schools, and for wrestling, they need to change that. And until they realize that, guess what? What's best for the sport in the state of North Dakota is not what's best for the nation necessarily. They've always wanted to be on the national boards and do all that, and it's cost North Dakota a lot of wrestlers and a lot of things that could be different and better for the sport and for the teams. One major example of that is number of weight classes. It's flippin' insane, and it's the best way for me to say it, that North Dakota has 14 weight classes. We've got a ton of towns that can't fill a 9-man football team. And you're asking us to put 14 wrestlers on the mat? You're flipping kidding me. It's not right. It makes me mad thinking about it. Now, there are towns which have, sports such as basketball, and they can put 6 people on the court. That's fine. I'm sorry. But it's not 14. And guess what? They don't get to have duels no more. Because guess what? They lose their duel because they have to forfeit half of the matches. It's just not right. And until North Dakota separates Class A and Class B when it comes to those weight classes, it would only make sense. I'm sorry. If you make 2 or 3 classes in the state, whatever it is, South Dakota has twice as many wrestlers as North Dakota. And I think there's a problem there. How can we convince, something that has more power than yourself, I guess, the High School Activities Association, to change what's best for our state, our sport? We're going to lose too many small towns eventually here. It's just not right. I don't know. There's a lot of parents that got to really kick it in and say, guess what? I'm sorry, but we can't start 10 freshmen on our varsity wrestling team or 10 underclassmen because of what's happening with this. We've been accustomed to, for such a long time in the sport of wrestling, to basically learn on the fly. It's kind of how wrestling has to be. You have to do it for yourself. You're on the mat. But there's no reason somebody should be learning the sport on a varsity mat when they're just starting. It's hard to get a freshman out for wrestling and have to say, guess what? You're on the varsity. And you lose them. It's just not right. And you feel it as a parent. You feel it as a coach. You feel it as a person that loves the sport. And I just think it's wrong. We need to do in whole. We need to be more JV tournaments, more JV possibilities for wrestlers. It just isn't enough out there for people to learn the sport once they get to a certain level, and that's defeating for the sport. But going back, I got kind of sidetracked here, guys. I'm already going for over 20 some minutes talking straight here. But heading down to the South Dakota State Wrestling Tournament, and just happy. I'm going to see some faces, got to visit some people. Going a long ways, going 6 hours from where I live to catch the state dual finals tonight. Hopefully I can catch a bunch of people. I tell you what, there's so many people I'd like to visit with. Time is short. And then we got Saturdays, the placing rounds. Hopefully I can get down on the floor. I should get press passes. I made the mistake, and I don't think I requested for South Dakota to renew mine. So hopefully I can find somebody with the High School Activities Association in South Dakota to let me in and get down on the floor. I'm not going to be able to see the coaches. I would be depressed. Back to those goals from July to August. Well, I got my advertising done, sold, and maybe this is a little scatterbrained, and maybe I need to cut this video and place it all together. But I had even more lofty goals. I needed a new website that wasn't just the message board. I need somebody to maintain it, and I bought, and I spent some more money, which, from the advertising stuff this summer, changed my front part of my website to a WordPress. WordPress, it gives you abilities on the front end to change things. And then I just have a link out to a second website, which is now wrestlingmessageboard.com. There's wrestling boards. I gotta double check that. I think it's wrestlingmessageboard.com. And just to separate them, because if one crashed, then the other one would still be up. I wouldn't have both crashing at one time. But I really need to figure a way to generate some money so that I could get a web developer, person that maintained the website on a weekly basis or during the wrestling season. It's 4 months, end of October, November, December, January, February, maybe 5 months. Unless somebody's willing to help out, I'd really appreciate it if somebody's out there that, what's interesting is I'm thinking probably 10, 20 people will watch this video, so it might not even make a difference. Again, it's something for me to look back at and see what's going through my head. Which I should almost list some of the goals I wanted to get done besides the 1,000 subscribers. Well, in that process, at the end of August, I start developing my letters. I've got to put all my new ads together. And so in the evenings, I start any new ads. I start making their ads on the computer in Photoshop or anything like that. I try to make a few new ads. I get my mailing list ready. And then I start putting the book together. Last year, 168 pages. So it starts off to make sure all the ads are kind of placed in the right town. Now, I don't know the amount of information the coaches are going to get me. So I get a general blank copy, transfer over all the ads from the previous year. InDesign is the program I use. And I spend my evenings for about, I'd say, a month and a half of putting the book together. Once I start doing that, then after that I got a few people that used to send me pictures or pictures that I would take. Like I'd take some at the state wrestling tournament, and then I would basically go through Photoshop and get them the right size, shape, color, adjustments, and start putting those in. So I get the ads and then the pictures in. And there's a general amount of space that I have, and try to get pictures for every team that's possible. And then from there, after I get those pictures, then I try to get pictures of the state champions and start putting the cover together. When I start putting the cover together, I do contact coaches to, at that point, to not only get their information to start putting in the book, but if they have pictures to put on the cover if they're state champs or other information like that. And I've got everything from very good pictures to really bad pictures over the years. In fact, I had a coach submit me the wrong picture for the state championship team once, or at least contacted a mother. The coach, I think, contacted a mother to send me the picture, and I don't think she made the mistake, but I get so busy during that time. She sent me the picture like from the previous 2 years previous. There were guys on the team that had graduated, and I didn't know it. I put it on the cover and make sure it's formatted in the right form, whatever they have, and then submit it to the printer because I got to get the cover done before I get the inside done. It's crazy how that is. And then I found out later after it got printed from a superintendent or a principal in a school and said, hey, that picture is not even the right picture on the cover of our state championship team. That's the team from 2 years ago or 3 or 4 or whatever years it was. And oops, there was a mistake. So in the amount of time I do things now, I try to double check and I send out the cover to the coaches, or to at least put it online to have people look it over before I send it to the printer and get comments and see if they like the picture or not. And at least that has cleared that up a little bit. It's kind of the proof system. It's amazing how that works. Well, then I used to give the coaches about a month to get their information into me, and it was a mistake. I mean, you send it out and you give them that amount of time. You know how procrastination works. The longer the amount of time you give a person between the first time they get it and the end, they push it off. They say, oh, we'll do it later, and they forget about it because that is a long duration in between. So I started to cut it back, and I moved it to 3 weeks from a month, and then I moved it to 2 weeks. Now, I'm not sure the exact right amount of time that I should give coaches. I should give them like tomorrow is what I should do, but I know got a lot of them that are football coaches and help out some with cross country and some other fall stuff. Some are hunting guides, and I know they're busy. And usually what I ask them to do is a small questionnaire. I send them a questionnaire, which should take, 20 minutes tops for most of them. Some of them do a very good job, probably spend many, many hours putting it together. And I appreciate those because they respect their team. And some of them, if they've done it long enough, they could write this up from last year or the beginning of this year. And so I should send out a notification. I'm still trying to figure out the right process and ask the coaches the right way and how to get, 100 and some coaches' information from them and put it in the book, and to make sure that it's pretty concrete. Because some coaches, I basically send it out with about 2 weeks and say, guess what? If you get it into me within these first week or 2 weeks, I will give you unlimited space, pretty much. If you give me all of your team pictures, I'll try to get all of your individual pictures in. I'll try to get all your information. If you wrote a novel, I think the most I've given some teams up to 2-3 pages, not a problem within the book. Because they were willing to do it. They're promoting the sport. They're promoting their kids. And that's what they should be doing. I don't see why they shouldn't at any time be not doing that. And so as they get me their information, then since I've already got pictures in for a lot of these, I then start basically, it's almost a cut and paste procedure. I used to type them all up. And then typing them up, I found that coaches don't spell very well. And neither do I. And so I start taking and cutting and pasting their questionnaire into the InDesign program, into the location of where their team is at. And it kind of fills the amount of space. And I've got kind of a standard, how big the, font is and all the other things. So it's all pretty standard throughout there. But I then have to piece it together, each team, as they get me the information in. What happens after I get probably about the first 20, 25 coaches to get their information to me, awesome. And it takes me a couple nights to, I get done with work, probably don't get off the computer till probably 2 in the morning, 1, 2 in the morning, piecing these things in there. And then once I get those first 20, 25 in, then I have to send out a reminder to coaches that your information is due. And I get stragglers in. Next thing you know, I've got about 60 teams left. Now 60, that means I don't even have half done yet. And I have to figure out now, how the heck am I going to get this information for these guys? And thank God for Track Wrestling and a few other good sites and people's Facebook. I can do a little Facebook stalking of some teams and get a few more pictures if the coaches haven't sent them in, or maybe some information. And over those 2 weeks, I probably have, by the time it's all said and done, 2 weeks, I've got 60% of the teams in. Looking awesome. Now, I've thought about, guess what? Those other coaches didn't get their information in, don't plan on getting their information in. I should just cut it out and just say, that's it. It's so sorry. So sad, so sorry, whatever I need to do to say, guess what? You don't want to promote your sport. It's free publicity for your kids, except for probably 20 minutes of your time. But I've never done that. And that's probably wrong on my part. I've pushed the book back in printing. I've done many, many things that in a real business couldn't do, because I've missed deadlines for printing. I've done many things over the 20 years to make sure that the 25, 30 books I've put together over the last 20 years have gone to print. Then what I do is I look traditionally to the teams that do not ever turn anything in, There's probably about 20 of those teams. And those 20 teams, I start writing their stuff for them. So I'll go to, and I probably shouldn't mention any of the teams' names, but so I'll go to that team's website if they got anything. They probably don't have a website that has anything. I then check to see if they I check if they have a school website first. If they do, usually the information on there is 3 to 5 years old, doesn't have anything up to date. Or they've got a brand new coach and they don't have any information. Then I'll go to the athletic directors. And the athletic director will have a little page, he'll have their schedule at least. Then what I'll do is I will then hop onto track wrestling. I will find who had qualified, who wrestled in their regional last year, their grades, and I'll start writing up a roster of wrestlers. Now, I'm not 100%, but the roster that they turned into track wrestling is usually pretty accurate on who wrestled last year, but I'm not saying that they're going out this year. I don't know that. But I'm putting together their possible roster for the year, and where they placed regionally, how they did at state, any returning state placers. If they have returning state placers, then I find pictures of them. So I probably got them on the stand at least, because I get pictures of all of the people who place. And then I start writing those up. Surprising enough, when it happens every year, I'll spend 20 minutes to a half hour per write-up. So got to think of that, about 20 of them to 30. About 20 that usually I write up for sure. I would say it takes 20 minutes each. That's 3 an hour. That's about 7 hours of work just for putting the teams that don't submit stuff to me. And then I get the 2 coaches that fax me their information, because they're still 1970 technology that they like to use. Instead of emailing it, I then have to retype their faxed information. And that is a pain. That is a major pain. And I tell you what, that's how I first started. There was a lot of teams that faxed their information to me. Imagine that. And so that those fax copies, at least they get me their information, and then I know what I can write up. Coach's outlook on the season, if there's any new wrestlers coming in, somebody to look forward to. Usually both the people that typically fax me their stuff at least gets me great information, even though it takes me a lot more time to put it in the book. Then what I do is I then make a final call on both Dakota Grappler message board, everything else, and find that there's probably another 30 that last minute have stuff to do. They email me back. So then I start typing the ones that I have not gotten. By the time I get those, there's probably another 30. So besides the 20 that I had to type up previously, because they never get me anything. So then the 30 that usually get me stuff, but they're late, I start typing some of those. I probably get half of those 30 that I start typing up and finding their stuff on track. I probably get half late, and the other half, they just don't get it into me. And those are different teams all the time. I'd say if I had to pick the criteria for the teams that didn't submit their stuff, I would say that for one, I must have pissed them off. I could go through the reasons why they don't submit stuff. One is I probably pissed them off somewhere in the past, made some comment online saying something, wrestling wise, but that's probably a small percentage. One is another one. Number 2, it's probably because they're too freaking lazy to damn put something together, and that's sad. Those coaches are too lazy to promote their wrestlers, don't put their stuff in their school newspaper, don't do anything. Love probably coaching and doing that stuff. They need to get somebody, a mother, a stat, somebody that cares enough to publicize their kids to do it. And that takes a little organization. But I do have some of those coaches. Number 3 would be coaches that just don't know about Dakota Grappler. It'd be really rare. I think all the coaches in North Dakota know about Dakota Grappler. I believe most of the coaches in South Dakota have at least been introduced to Dakota Grappler. And guess what? By doing it, I'll promote your sport. I get books. This hardcover book is one of the best memorabilia things for 20 years for parents. Books are, let's go to number 4 or number 5. I can't remember what number it is. Number 4 or 5, why don't they get their stuff in? They just don't care enough. Not that they're lazy. Heart might be in the good place in the room, but just don't care. And that's sad. That's really sad. Wow. I've been going for 40 minutes. I'm going to get a drink here for a second. You know, driving down the road and doing this, it's easy to drive and talk. My wife hates it when I do it. In fact, I'm not sure if law enforcement likes it either. Or people that are watching this probably don't like it either. But just switching hand to hands, keep my eye on the road, phone in my other hand, and another hand and seatbelt on. Could go farther away. Maybe I'm going too close to my face. Probably see anything that's stuck in my mustache from lunch. Or oh, guys, I tell you what. And if anything, here's kind of my summary of this going to. I got many things about going to the state wrestling tournament in South Dakota, but one of the main things is if there's anybody out there that would love to help me promote the sport, I would love you to join forces with me, because I see such the benefit for the you know, the youth growing up, for any young man, woman, child, just the life lessons it teaches. You know, wrestling changed my life, I'll guarantee it, and it was for the positive. It made me work hard, make me think, made me believe in myself, and actually, you know, would overcome obstacles. There's so many sayings you get into it, like that, you know, Dan Gable and other people come out, but in reality, you start making your own statement. That's what wrestling does. It makes you put your foot down and dig in and get ready for battle. You know, I used to take things differently than my son. When I went out on the mat sometimes, I put in my head that this is life or death. And I don't know if that's right, but I put that inside my head, saying I cannot do anything out there but succeed. It's that means that much to me. And almost, no, and life and death scenario, maybe there's a better analogy. You know, it's do or die. It's, you know, there's, I don't know why, but what I learned early in life, like for example, if somebody threw you to your back, I would never, and I don't want to always talk about myself so much in that sense, but I only got pinned once in my whole life in several hundreds of matches. That was in third grade. I got touch pinned in a freestyle tournament. I tried to throw some kid from Wisconsin in the national wrestling tournament. I could headlock anybody. That's what I was telling myself. Because guess what? When I walked through North Dakota, you know, not doing all the fundamentals, you know, I'd have good singles and doubles and you name it. But all of a sudden, this crazy thing about somebody pushing into you and then I'll throw them in a headlock. Well, guess what? This kid from Wisconsin started pushing in me, and I'm going to throw him in a headlock. I tried to throw him. He stepped back in front, and next thing you know, I went through the air. If somebody would have had that on video, it would have probably been one of those picture moments as he stepped back in front and launched me, kind of like he was ready. And you know how you can step in front of a headlock instead of stepping behind and getting up in the hips? I was launched through the air. Next thing you know, I was on my back for half a second or a second. It had been a second because it touched pin. And I didn't even know, because I thought I was just basically thrown out of bounds. And you get souffled or you get whatever. And referee says, "Come here, son." And he says this to me, and I just thought, no, what the heck? I just rolled through it. He shake hands. And I was amazed. The other kid's hand got raised. I looked at my dad, and he goes, "You were pinned." And I'm going, how did I get pinned? Touch pin. Well, the rest of my life, now it's third grade, when I looked at my dad's eyes and he said, "You were pinned," any other time I was ever on my back in my life, it was do or die. It was, this is not going to happen. And that was an attitude that I kept the rest of my life from my third grade experience in wrestling, that there's nothing that can take you down. There's nothing that is going to pin you. That's life. That's everything. If you think of it in that sense, how easy is life if you decide to put 100% towards something to not happen? Not happen. It's not happening here. And guess what? You don't want to be thinking about going to your back, but guess what? When it happens, you get yourself back up off your freaking back, or you roll to your belly, which I got a big one now, but you find a way to change things that are not going right for you. And if you're going to get over things, that's such a big factor in life, that when somebody tries to pin you, put you on your back, that you find a way out of it. You battle. So true. I mean, that seems like the simplest life lesson ever. It's amazing sometimes. But just those things. So going back to somebody, if somebody else has the same passion as me about the sport, I'd like to form a wrestling mastermind group. And this is something that I had on my goal list. And that goal list, it was actually number 3 on my goal list. Number 1 was 1,000 subscribers. Imagine that. Number 2 was to hire or get people to help me in both North and South Dakota with the YouTube channel. And guess what? 1 and 2 check. 1 was not checked off, 1,000 subscribers. Number 2 was checked off. I found Tom Schoenhard and I found Bill Holton, and I believe I'm going to find some more people. Rob Moore was a brand new one who I found that was phenomenal the other night, and I don't know why I haven't had him on the past. I've had several of the coaches, but he was a great visit, and I'm looking forward to visiting with him yet tonight when I get at the state wrestling tournament there. Then, going farther down the list, number 3 on my list was a wrestling mastermind group. Now, so I started writing down some of the criteria. I want some people that have passion for the sport, want to promote the sport, have ideas to, could be raise money, could be for anything, have ideas to make the sport better, influence what is happening. Can't even remember what I had all on that list, but I'll probably have to pull it out and just make another video on what I would like to see in a wrestling mastermind group. There's so many different levels of wrestling to get it right. So you have to have that elementary beginning level. You have to have those coaches in the room for both freestyle and Greco. You have to have the right, it's like a big management team. And I kind of would like to find, a half a dozen guys, myself and like 4 or 5 others, that would like to get together and visit online and say what they're doing for wrestling or for themselves or for a club, sport in general. How we could generate more interest in the sport, how we could generate more interest in, maybe a Facebook group just for them. Maybe that's an idea. I've got Dakota Grappler stuff on Facebook. Maybe we put the Wrestling Mastermind group together. Maybe I'd name it something else. I don't know what. But if somebody has an idea, go to jon.gums, Gums, at Gmail, and just give me a quick message if you even see this. I'll put something else out there. In fact, I think I'll make a video just on the wrestling mindset mastermind group or something. And then I've looked into making one of these mastermind groups, but have not followed through. That was on my list too. Like I said, making a mastermind group, wrestling mastermind group. Other goals I had of goals of working out more, so that I can wrestle my own son. Does that sound crazy? 50 years old, and my son this year weighs 108 pounds last year, and I weigh about 240, and probably not any smaller than that, but I gotta I had the goal of losing some weight between now and his senior year. I want to be able to drill with my son. And now he doesn't weigh 108 this year. He got up to 150 before the wrestling season. We started lifting weights together. But he was weighing 147 after the wrestling season here. He was down to about 140, wrestling 152 for Bismarck Century. But you know what? That was not checked off the list. As soon as the wrestling season started, I got stuck doing my book and stuff on the web. And in reality, those 3-4 months that we lifted before the wrestling season, I was thinking, guess what? I'm gonna get there. Did a lot of lifting and not as much cardio. I'd pulled a groin muscle, in fact, or my groin in softball, and so I about couldn't run at the end of the season. So I kind of got rid of the cardio. I couldn't really do much cardio, and so I just lifted weights with him. But like I said, as soon as wrestling started, he had wrestling practices, I didn't commit myself. And like I said, one of those goals on that list because it would help Dakota Grappler, it would help everything wrestling-wise, just getting better shape and lose some weight. But I think somebody that's in a mastermind group could have these goals and put things together and have 3 goals and kind of have how could you say it? Kind of a group of people that can hold you responsible, if that makes any sense. And where did this come from, this mastermind group idea? It came from those meetings back in the beginning of last May, June and July when I was visiting with Travis Lang. We talked about this mastermind group, but man, we just haven't been able to put it together. Now his mastermind group or circle is different than my circle. His is in the business area, but yet it kind of circles over with wrestling, and he wanted his to be in basically about being the best dad out there. It was his whole goal, like his main focus. And because he just had become a father, and he'd like to help out other dads type of situation of being a good dad and a role model and all those other things. And so the focus between him and I wasn't quite the same. I want to focus in wrestling and my businesses and side hustles. So he just didn't put it together. And plus he always becomes a factor with time. If you want something to work, you got to put time into it. And he couldn't find the time. So, man, disappointed in that part. Travis and I still get together once in a while just to BS things and bounce stuff off of one another. So that's my main priority here as I focus in coming into South Dakota State Wrestling. I'd like to find somebody from South Dakota who can do a lot of the stuff online. Maybe a couple people, South Dakota, North Dakota, wrestling people that have other things. And I think the mastermind group could help business-wise, could help a person's mindset, have goals, could be financial, could be as simple as, like me being on a diet or, workout and having somebody kind of responsible and finding partners on the path for that, business partners. Some of us, I am married. Like I said, I've got kids, so she's ultimate, my partner of mine and some stuff I do, but yet, we're all separate in different things we like to do. She was mad at the wrestling season. I don't get mad. I smile. So, guess what? We're still married after all the wrestling stuff I do. It's a miracle. I must compromise in some other ways, because when it comes to wrestling, even going to the state wrestling tournament down South Dakota today, she's going, you got to plan this stuff a little better. and it's wrestling again. You got other things. Your boy is getting his driver's license soon. You should be having him drive all the time, or you got to go driving with him. Oh, it's all life. We all know that. But again, like I mentioned, I've almost talked for an hour here. Was going to get a drink. Somebody bears through and listens to this. I apologize for all the longness of this type of things. But I tell you what, we all have goals. We all have ideas, visions. But without follow through, without a commitment, without somebody being kind of your, like I said, accountability partner. And I'm hoping to find some accountability partners out there to help me promote the sport, do what's best. Let me continue Dakota Grappler. That's probably the next hardest thing. Just continuing it. 20 years. Could I do wrestling without Dakota Grappler? Is there somebody out there to pass the baton to? I don't know. I've been such a solo man forever doing this thing. 20 years of doing this, it's a part of you. So, again, we'll visit in the very near future. I'll get on. Maybe I'll do some highlights of the state wrestling tournament when I do get there. Missed the first 2 days. South Dakota's 3-day wrestling tournament this year for the first time. But, let's just continue on. Time to get off my back and just push forward, fight, and see what happens. So maybe somebody will fight with me. Guys, thanks for watching. Dakota Grappler. More stuff coming soon. Talk to you soon. Bye.